everyone, Ace of Clay here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to another sculpting video. If you're new here, I'm a sculptor and every week I make a new sculpture, and in today's video, I'm finally sculpting Pennywise. This has really been a long time coming. You all know it. You all have been asking for him since the first movie came out. I don't know why it took me so long, but I finally made him today and I'm so excited to share this process with you. I wanted to make a version of him that showed his classic clown outfit, but also with a little twist, and if you saw the thumbnail, you know what I mean. And I'm ready to jump right in. So without further ado, check me out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Ace of Clay, and let's get started. Alright, let's make Pennywise. I've got my wooden plaque here, I've got 2 holes drilled for my armature wire, and I'm going to start shaping out the legs and torso. And as always, all the materials and tools that you see me use in this video are listed in the description box below, along with my affiliate links if you want to purchase anything. Now that I've got that roughed out, let's go ahead and shape out the arms. He's going to have these long sort of lobster claws from that one scene, and I'm just shaping everything out from my armature wire, and we're going to attach this with some more wire. Make sure it's nice and secure right at the shoulders. Now I'm just trying to get a better idea of his stance, and I'm bending the knees a little bit, and then we're going to start brushing on some Bacon Bond to attach some Super Sculpey Ultralight to start bulking out the torso. This step can also be done with aluminum foil. I also want to bulk out the larger areas of his costume just so I don't have to use a ton of regular clay. You're only supposed to use like a 1/4 inch of Super Sculpey, so this is avoiding that. And then we're going to add some wire for his neck, and then get him in the oven. And ultralight, you can use it in thicker pieces and it won't crack. That's one of the benefits of it. All right, let's bake this thing. And once he's baked and completely cooled down, we're going to start covering him in some Super Sculpey Original. Got these nice even sheets by rolling it through my pasta maker on the thickest setting. Check out this awesome transition. And the piece that I threw is sitting right there next to him on the ground. How great is that? Let's start working on the legs. Of course, after we add some Bacon Bond to our wire, we got our little snakes of clay, and we're going to start shaping out the legs, carving off some excess with our Excel blade. Use code ACEOFCLAY at excelblades.com to save 15% on your purchase. Now it's time to do the ankles and shoes, smoothing things out with my spoon tool, and then we're going to work our way up a little bit and add some ruffles at the bottom. Now to make the ruffles, I'm just taking this flat sheet of clay and crinkling it a little bit and then attaching it. I believe there are 2 layers of ruffles on each leg, so we're attaching the second layer like so, blending in the top with my spoon tool and doing the other off camera. And then let's figure out the midline for his waist so that we get the details on this lower area correct. And we're just using some sort of teardrop shapes of clay, blending those in with my spoon tool and just trying to mimic the look of this poofy, bunchy fabric. Now, as you can see, I won't be using any snakes of clay for this because that creates a more drapey look or a more pulled taut look. This is more of a, like I said, poofy texture. It's pretty stiff looking fabric, so I just want to create the look of that. I don't want it to be full of snakes of clay. Now we're going to go ahead and add the layer of ruffles above that. I've just got this little chunk of clay. We're going to blend in the top edge and then shape everything out with a bunch of different tools. And I'm not making these ruffles like I made the ones at his ankles. I actually want to sculpt these. I'm not just going to take a piece of clay and create the ruffles by weaving it back and forth. I want to sculpt the shape of these because I think it's more effective for the sculpt. Now I'm just going to go ahead and use my thumbs to press in some wrinkles under the arms just so it looks like the fabric is pulling around his torso, and then we're going to throw on his belt. And then from there we'll just add the piping with our pin tool, and then of course his 3 pom-poms down his chest. And now that everything is looking pretty good, I want to brush the surface with clay softener to remove fingerprints and pre-bake this so that when I work on his arms, I don't smash anything I just finished. And once he's baked and completely cooled down, let's start his head. I could have done this while he was in the oven, but I needed a little break, so. All right, just got my living doll clay over some aluminum foil, adding a skewer to hold on to while I sculpt the details. And let's just start by mapping some things out by creating indents with my fingertips. just using a reference photo to figure out where all his facial features go, and then of course giving him that giant sort of Megamind cranium. Now using a medium ball stylus, I'm pressing in the eye sockets, and then I'm going to start shaping out the nasolabial creases in the mouth area with my spoon tool. And then you can see where I started to create indents for his teeth, and there we're just giving him a bigger cheek. Then we're going to repeat this process on the other side. After we pop in his eyes, and then once those are in, I'm going to take this tool and rock it back and forth from the middle of his face to the outside of his face to create the eyes and eyelids simultaneously. And then move on to the eyebrows, or the brow area. He doesn't technically have eyebrows. They're sort of just little indents in his forehead. And this is just the brow bone from him frowning, grinning, looking super creepy. Alright, now that the mouth is at a good point and everything is at the location it needs to be, I'm going to pop in his nose, start blending that in and detailing that before I move on to his mouth again and start carving out his teeth. Okay, now that his face is at a good point, let's throw on his first ear. Just got that ear shape that I'm pressing in, and then blending the back into the side of his head, and then we're going to start using a medium ball stylus to press out the main indent inside the ear, and then a smaller ball stylus to detail everything else, after of course we blend it in better with his cheek. There we go. Well, let's refine that ear and then do this again for his other one. And just like that, he's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and pre-bake his head so I can add his hair without smashing his face. And then while the head is baking, let's start working on his arms. Gonna add some bacon bond, get those covered in clay, start creating these really long claws. I don't think they're called claws either. I need to figure it out because there's no bottom thumb to them. They're just sort of like a limb that, I don't know, like a secondary claw or something. There's probably a name for it. If you know it, let me know in the comments. But before I work my way up the rest of his arm, I'm just going to create the puffy sleeves like that, overlaying them, and then just kind of mimicking that fabric texture I did for his lower half, just on a smaller scale. All right, and then once that first sleeve is done, I'm just using this bamboo skewer to press out a crinkle texture in the fabric part of his arm, and then we'll finish off the top part like this, bring it to a point at the end like that, and then we're going to start creating the creature texture that it's got. Now I just want to take a second to talk about our sponsor. Hey, it's me again. Now before we get into the rest of the video, let's take a second to talk about our sponsor, NordVPN. NordVPN is a service that encrypts your internet activity and protects your online identity. When you go on the internet and you go to a website, you connect to your internet service provider or ISP, and from there, they direct you to the website you want to visit. When you do this, you're going through your ISP's servers and they can see and track literally everything you're doing online. They may even give your lovely browsing history to third parties like advertisers and even government agencies. Now, if the thought of this makes you you a little uncomfortable, this is where NordVPN comes in. Everything I just said, like your browsing history being shared with the government, that won't happen with a VPN. You can browse the internet safely and freely, it's easy to use, you can connect in just one click or use auto connect for zero-click protection. It has 5,100 servers in 61 countries. It has amazing speed that has been confirmed by speed tests. NordVPN is the fastest VPN out there. You can use it on up to 6 devices, and of course, it's on every major platform. Another thing that makes a VPN great is the ability for you to access content that maybe you can't get to in your country. If there's a game or platform you can't visit because of where you live, just simply change your virtual location. And now NordVPN is more than a VPN because they have what's called threat protection, and this can protect you from malicious websites, intrusive ads, and trackers. It is awesome. So if all of this sounds good to you and you want to take advantage of NordVPN's awesome discount they have going on, head on over to nordvpn.com/clay. There you can get yourself a 2-year plan with a huge discount plus 1 additional month for free. Thanks again, NordVPN, for sponsoring this video. Now back to Pennywise. And then to really take the arms to the next level, we're going to add all those creepy little spikes that are on every side of it. So we're going in with some balls of clay, bringing them to a point with my fingertips, and then blending them in with a color shaper, some spoon tools, all sorts of different things just to get them to look just right. I'm really happy with how the first one came out. I'm gonna go ahead and make his other arm off camera. Be right back. And I'm back. The other arm is done. Look at that. Okay. Now we're gonna go ahead and make his hair, and I'm just adding it to his head like so in little chunks. And then you can see there's a hole in the back of his head. I noticed some hairline cracks in the back of his head, and to avoid any more cracking, I carved a bigger hole with a blade and then poked a hole with my pin tool all the way through inside to let any air escape. And then I'm just gonna make sure that hole stays open when he bakes. And then later on, if I want, I can always fill it with some epoxy or air dry clay, and it'll be like it never happened. But that is a great way to avoid cracks in your sculpture. If you get tiny hairline cracks, just poke a hole and it'll have a place for the air to escape. Now we're just going to detail the hair using my Explorer tool and that nifty little tiny round spoon tool thing, and just getting all that texture in there, making sure that the shapes are correct. And he's got quite the hairdo, I must say. Now that his hair is done, I'm going to go ahead and work on the ruffles. I just have this sort of disc shape that I'm pressing onto his shoulders, and I'm going to carve out the shape of the ruffles. I'm not going to attach them individually. We're just going to sculpt them like this. I'm just going to press in each level. There are 3 layers total. So let's go ahead and do that now. This is a pretty fun, relaxing process, I gotta say. Really enjoy doing them this way. Now to bring everything together with some Bake and Bond, of course, let's stick on his head and get him ready for his final bake. With, of course, one last brushing of clay softener to remove fingerprints and smooth everything out. Alright, he's looking pretty good. Let's get him in the oven. And once he's baked and completely cooled down, it is time for paint. All the paints that I'll be using are Folk Art brand matte acrylics and chalk paints. Check them out. Pretty cool. Very happy with how he turned out. Let's start with this nice medium gray color for his costume. And once that base gray is completely dry, we're going to start adding a darker gray wash, just brushing on this watered down dark gray and dabbing the excess off with a paper towel and my fingertips. We're going to do this over the surface of his entire costume. Now that the wash is on and dry, I'm going to dry brush some lighter gray that's even lighter than the first coat of gray onto the surface to catch all the details. And to dry brush, just completely saturate your brush in the color you want to use and brush off as much of it as you can until there's just a very little bit left, and then swiftly brush it onto the surface, only catching the raised areas and details. It's super easy, may take a couple tries to get the hang of it, but it's a very gratifying process. Now let's paint his face. I'm going to start with this very, very light gray. It's titanium white that I tinted with a very little bit of pure black. I'm just going to dab some dark gray into the eye sockets to create a sort of darkened circles, whatnot around the eyes, maybe makeup. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but there you go. Add some black eyeliner, then paint the whites of his eyes and the irises. Now for his mouth and teeth, I want to go in with dark red over everything, and then I can dry brush some yellow just onto the teeth later on. Alright, let's add some yellow circles inside those red circles to make it look like they are yellow eyes with a red outline. Very cool. And then he'll have a little black pupil in a sec. And then, of course, we got to paint his nose. This part was fun. I really thought this really brought his face together. Now for the trickiest part in his face makeup, we're using the thinnest brush I own to create those little squiggly lines off the ends of his mouth. And it's not the end of the world if you screw these up. You can always go in with some more white or whatnot to fix any jagged edges, which I had to do a couple times, but they came out pretty good. Now let's go ahead and add some yellow to the teeth with a brush that's way too big. This is the brush that I used to mix the yellow color, and I'm just taking a risk and using it to paint the teeth. I should have used a much smaller brush, but anyway, let's go ahead and paint those ruffles under his neck. Start with the base color, and then we're also going to put a wash and dry brush these as well. Now for my favorite part when I paint eyes is adding a little white dot next to the pupil. This really brings them to life. Alright, now let's go ahead and paint those monster arms like that. This nice sort of salmon-y red color. Looks pretty lobstery to me, not gonna lie. Now for his hair, I'm using the color Glazed Carrots. I'm going to put this on, and then we're also going to add a wash to this as well to sink into all those lines that I put in there. Now to color the transition from costume to lobster claw, I am dry brushing some of that same costume gray color onto the surface of each claw, concentrating it more at the bottom, of course, where it is transitioning. And this looked really cool. It really worked very well. I was happy with this, and it was extremely satisfying watching that white or light gray go over the red like that. Now, final detail, I'm adding some yellow to the rope around his waist. I thought this was a nice touch, really brought the detail out a little further. And then we're going to go in with that wash on his hair, finish him up. Now we're going to go in and paint his base red. I might change it to black, I don't know yet, and say it with me. And he's done! My Pennywise sculpture is complete. Let me know what you think of him in the comments. I think this guy turned out so cool. I'm so glad I did the spider lobster claw things instead of just having him just holding a balloon like a normal clown. I think he turned out cool. I had a blast making him, and of course I am so appreciative to all of you for being here to watch me make him from start to finish. Let me know what you want to see me make next, and then check me out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Ace of Clay, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.